Good evening and welcome to this very special Moth News Live. This thing, I'll just explain to you what I'm doing here, Philip, in the background. To go live on Instagram, you have to, when you go live on Restream, you then have to click go live on Instagram, and it catches me every time, and it just most of the time doesn't work. So we're not live on Instagram, we are live on X, we're live on Restream, hopefully we're live on YouTube. These are our the things we're working out, Philip, as we go.
Every day is a school day, Keith. I'll text Mark Zuckerberg. While you're doing the intro there, I'll text Mark Zuckerberg and see if we can get him up there,
So what does Mark Zuckerberg know? You know what I mean? So anyway, breaking news, folks. Breaking news. Let me see if I can get this up. So the headline in the Irish Times today, fair play to the Irish Times for covering it, because they hadn't really spoken negatively really, or done any reporting negatively about Jeff Leo so far. So the headline is Liquidator wants disbarred broker to be examined under oath. Jeffrey Leo alleged to have misappropriated part of 50 million given to him by American couple. Now, we did speak to the person representing the American couple, who happened to be egg farmers in America, and they've made quite a lot of money from egg farming, and some of this money they gave to Jeff Leo, and he said, look, he's an investment banker guy. He said, look, give me some of this money and I will turn this money into more money and I'll come back to you. So it doesn't seem that he's done quite what he said he would do. And we can see here the Liquidator. Hi, Al. Thanks for joining us. I'll come to you in a sec. You can see here the Liquidator, Mr. Wallace, who was a liquidator in the Altada case, I believe, and I know Al can correct me if I'm right. He was removed at the request of the Wennings, who are the American family, because of some issues around, his, was he a trustworthy character? So we don't really know where that came from. Now, Mary Wenning said in an affidavit that she and her husband only recently learned that Mr. Leo had been disbarred. So he wasn't technically allowed to do this kind of business in America, and that seems to be why he came to Ireland. She said they understood that Mr. Leo to be a reputable investment advisor, and as a result did not insist on his role being documented. So they didn't check really, which is fair enough. Over the years, she said they transferred about 60 million to him to acquire investments on their behalf. The investments in various entities and structures, including the Dundrum House Hotel, which we've spoken a lot about yesterday. I spoke to a resident in Dundrum, a former resident Dundrum House Hotel yesterday, who was really badly treated. She was denied food. She was denied food vouchers. She was denied access to the dining halls. Her child was stopped from getting on a bus to go to school. Now, the bus is a government organized bus. She has a bus ticket, but it was the management and the owners and the security of Dundrum House that stopped that child getting on the bus to go to school. Now, I'm not a legal expert, but I'd imagine that's highly illegal to stop a child getting on a school bus to go to school. Anyway, so this is breaking now today. This is kind of the first negative news we've seen, and it's the Irish Times reporting on it. Al, we'll go to you first, because it all started with this, and I think I should have the headline that sort of kicked it all off. Let me see if I can get that in a way that people can read it. Not this one, not that one.
That's the one, yeah. You can see it. You can see it.
Yes. So U.S. financier taking legal action against Altada founder. This was in the Irish Times. Jeffrey Leo files proceedings against Alan. That's you, Al. And it must have seemed to you like the mainstream media, the Irish Times, Sunday Business Post. I think maybe the Currency were sort of, they weren't great on it, but they were good on it sometimes. They probably didn't do enough. But you must have felt like the world was against you, because all of the press that was coming out of this, you were on the front pages of many newspapers as the owner of Altada and these proceedings. And it seemed like it was bad for you. I know personally it was tough for you. I know business-wise it was tough for you. So look, and now to see this headline in the Irish Times where they want Jeffrey Leo under oath to speak about his investments. This must be great.
So Keith, apologies to everybody. I'm in transit in Portugal, and I just had to jump on this, right? So I'm not as organized as usual. Let's break it down into 4 material points, right? So First thing is Charlie Taylor has been challenged on his lack of coverage of Jeff Leo, and even I have a string of chat messages, screenshots to shared with me. Right, I can't
Can I
share
just
the
say that?
screenshots.
Can I just tell people that Charlie Taylor is a journalist with the Sunday Business Post and had only been reporting good news about Jeffrey Leo, even though we had been and you had been telling him, look, this is not all as it seems. So carry on.
Yeah, and he's written, high double digits articles about me and keeps putting my picture on every article, even when it's not related to me directly, and my wife Niamh, right? So he's on a complete malice expedition, right? And not only that, unprecedented, he attended the Altada creditor meeting in person with Tom Lyons from the Currency. They attended it as creditors, and they had on their screens creditors. And during the meeting, one of the creditors asked them, "Are you sure?" They've asked John Healy, the liquidator, "Are you sure it is only creditors on the meeting?" He said, "Yes." Right? Now it materializes that John Healy is in the middle of this thing with Jeffrey Leo. They voluntarily liquidated the company to move assets out of the company. That's it. There's no other way to describe it. That's exactly what they did. Right?
Are you
That's
able
exactly
to
what
say?
they did.
Are you able to say beyond doubt that the liquidator John Healy has behaved inappropriately here?
Yes. Not only that, it's been said on statements. Absolutely. It's completely inappropriate in terms of he didn't do his job. He didn't actually check if there was any diligence complete. And, he's quoted to say that he has a relationship with Jeff Leo when a liquidator is supposed to be neutral and objective at every juncture. That's their role, right? Their role is supposed to be independent. And he's told everybody that he's got a relationship with Jeff Leo, and he's on a pathway, very dangerous pathway, right? Now, there is one journalist that covered it, which I can send you a screenshot now, Keith, right? Which is a journalist with the Currency. But this was from pressure being applied, right? And, it's sent you there now if you wanted to show it, right?
Yeah.
Just make sure you don't show the name of the person that's. So it says Kieran Wallace of Interpad Advisory replaced the original liquidator John Healy of Kirby Healy on the foot of a petition by the company shareholder James and Mary Wenning. Now, just put this in context, guys, right? Okay. And I'm not displacing or stepping away from my responsibilities of what happened in a company that I was responsible for that failed. I'm just telling you that it's not balanced in terms of this is a family office in the US that had close to $80 million fraudulently removed out of their reach by Jeff Leo and John Healy. And that's it. There's no other way to fucking describe it. That's it. And the same individual is down in Dundrum having people exposed to horrific conditions. And here we are sitting, Charlie Taylor from the Business Post, once again, is demonstratively defending himself, saying there's no story here. And if you look at the articles, the same guy, Charlie Taylor, has not reported on this, even when it's blatantly obvious. Blatantly obvious. And I can
Why
send
why would a journalist do such a thing? Surely he's, compromising his. Obviously, it's not great for journalism in general, but he's like
the editor needs to fire that guy, Keith. Like, that's it. End the story. Like, this guy has a responsibility to the business community to report on balance, and he makes the decision himself what's in the public's interest and not. Like, if he doesn't think for 1 second that a business journalist who is supposed to be looking after the people, and back to your point, Philip, last week, a journalistic responsibility to tell people about these guys. This is a fraudulent guy. This is a guy who has been convicted of, found to be in a correct legal term from a layman is found to be in a very fraudulent position, right? He's not convicted yet, right? But he has been disbarred, right, from any activity by FINRA and SEC in the US based on the fact that took a deal or whatever, right? It's very documented, and he's in court with me. This is the paradox. He has me and you, Keith, in court next week on the 3rd of March for defamation, for telling the truth about the guy, and that's in every front page of the Business Post reported by Charlie Taylor.
And what time do I have to be there?
You're not going to be there because you're going to be well represented because we do have deep pockets and we are going after everybody legally, and we will be pursuing these guys. and we are going to get him out of Dundrum, and we are going to stop this guy doing business in Ireland, and we're going to stop John Healy plundering him and, corporate raiding companies using solvency and insolvency, right? That's it.
So this is what you just sent me. Kieran Wallace was removed.
No, Kieran Wallace removed John Healy.
Oh, but
he replaced
who?
John Healy, the liquidator of Altada that Jeff Leo put into Altada, and his fellow colleagues in Elkstone under a bit of Daytech. He was replaced because he was also put into the liquidation for winning zoning by Jeff Leo, right? He was replaced by a very credible insolvency practitioner, Kieran Wallace. Arguably, in my humble opinion, the best guy in the country. That ethics, moral, does his job, does it well, clean reputation. He's in it a long time, right? And he's astonished at what's happening here, right? It's evident, right? He replaced John Healy in that liquidation, and now they're winding it out. They're winding out, reversing that process, and what they're discovering can only be described as next extraordinary behavior and conduct, right?
This wasn't. I mean, even today, I can see the Irish Times report on it. So, hat tip to them. The Currency as well. I think breaking news
news.ie,
were the first.
I think Killian Woods on this post. I'm open to correction on that, but still, I mean, he's in proportion to what happened to us last week at a creditors meeting. I mean, we were in every legacy media platform for 2 days and 3 days running with our picture shared. There's not one picture of Jeff Leo, not one picture of John Healy on any of the articles. None of them. Not one of them, right?
Philip,
we were targeted.
We
were targeted on X. We had message sent to us. We had more threatening messages sent to us directly, right? We had vile comments from a guy called Greg Canty, absolute vile individual on LinkedIn, right? We put in a complaint to LinkedIn. He doesn't adhere. He called us thieves, literally thieves, right? And he was apparently adhering to community guidelines on LinkedIn, right? Just literally defamed us on LinkedIn, right? This guy's another buddy of Leo and Charlie Taylor from the business.
Philip, as a journalist and chief reporter here on Moth News, and a man of you're a man of good standing. We trust you. What's your reaction to this?
Well, I think what sticks out to me, Keith, is how we make judgments about the stories that we cover, right? And you often fall into one of two categories in the media, right? You're either one of the good guys or you're one of the bad guys. And that applies to journalists, it applies to companies, it applies to politicians, And these things depend on your relationships. They depend on the access you have, and they depend on how you do things. Now, we've spoken in the past on the Moth News, on the regular lives that we do on a Friday, about how this idea of clientelism, I often wonder if Alan and Altada would have had the problems they had if they had, 5 people that, in the media, in powerful positions in the media, that they could turn to and just put their side of the story out and get out ahead of any crisis that may have occurred and that kind of thing. Because if you have those people, if you have
Philip, can I come in now a second?
Sure.
Just to interject, you've actually hit on a very important point, and this has never been covered, right? Mm-hmm. We had secured incoming investment from agencies like the European Investment Bank, who wrote to us and said, we can no longer proceed with this process due to the negative publicity. And I can show you the timeline. We went through an examinership, mm-hmm. and I retained the same team for the entire duration of the company prior to that. And as soon as those articles hit, what happened? Resignations, people looking for jobs, recruiters started contacting the team. The company went into a depressed state within days. Done.
And that's the thing. So when you're sitting there in that situation, as I've often said on this show before, it's never enough to be right in this world. You have to be able to get that and your case in front of people, right? So if you look at, and this is completely separate from what we're talking now, but there's a lot of people talking about neutrality and NATO and military defense spending and all those kinds of things in Ireland. That's not a coincidence. Somebody somewhere has decided that these are the things that Irish people are going to talk about now, right? Next week it might be carbon taxes, or next week it might be something entirely different. The tax rates, towards American multinationals, whatever it is. And those things are decided by, it could be journalists themselves, they could be in touch with lobbyists, they could be talking to politicians. It might be that a competitor to this news platform comes and says, oh, we have a story about those guys, don't write negatively about us, and we'll give you something about Alan and Keith and Philip, right? None of that is morally correct, none of that is journalistically correct, right? And we've spoken off air about this, Keith, and this is why, my eyes were open when I moved to Scandinavia about how open things are. But the lines are very, very clear, right? So when I was doing due diligence before I even joined this platform at all, I saw all the things that were written about Alan and Neve and that, and I went to the company's office to find out what had gone on. And when you discover that there was no wrongdoing on their part, that simply the market just turned against them, then you realize that you're working with decent people, right? There are other people that you go and you do your due diligence on, and something different entirely happens. Now, if I was to do that in Scandinavia, say Alan in the morning doesn't do something, say, he fires somebody without consequence, or he fires somebody without due cause, or that kind of thing, I will come on this platform on Friday or the following Friday, and I will call him out on that, because I separate the personal relationship from the professional relationship. And this is what we're not getting in Ireland, right? So you get that kind of thing.
Can I just stop you there, Philip? Because I know Al has to jump, because we can chat afterwards about this, because I think you're making very good points. Al, I know you have to go. What does today mean for you?
It's the start of the war for us, because now what they've completely misunderstood and misread is that I am a tenacious fucker and I don't give up at all. I don't sleep very much. Not that I can't sleep, I don't sleep, right? And I definitely, if I was sitting across the table from me, I would not want me as an enemy. And they have kicked the shit out of my family. They have pushed my family, my children, my wife into a situation of, as you said, Philip, disgrace, questions. They have crossed the line. They crossed the line. And now the only way that I'm going to deal with this is I'm going to wipe these guys off the map. That's it. I want defamation cases are being initiated, slander, damages, opportunity cost, everything. I have a task force ignited since yesterday morning and today that are going to pursue every one of these guys. And that's what it means for me, because Kate, we've been pushing against the tide for 2.5 years. Imagine it's going on for 2.5 years. So back to your point, Philip, we've had people shun us, right? I've been assaulted on an aircraft landing into Cork with my kids by people that have no relationship with me, never knew me before this, just because they read something on the paper. They assaulted me and my children getting off a flight. We were hit with bags as we were getting off the flight when this was happening, right? That's what we've had to endure. And here we are back out again with a company. And the only reason that they were doing it was to stop us starting again, because they know the wrongdoing is done. That's it. So my message to these guys, I'm coming for you guys. And that's it. So you better fucking watch out. And that's it. That's it. And what it means to me, Keith, is, I'm not going to get complacent, and what else it means to me is I am now going to stop this happening to anybody else, because this is disgraceful. We are damaging our beautiful country with this behavior. We're showing people globally that we are full of begrudgery, we're full of discern, and we annihilate our entrepreneurs and business people that are trying to create. What are they trying to create at the end of the day? A business. That's all they're trying to do. That's all we're trying to do. That's all we ever tried to do. We tried to create a good company, employing people, and try to build great technology and, bring a bit of good into the fucking planet. That's it. That's all we did. So that's the message. And I'm going to reverse this nonsense where these journalists, Charlie Taylor, Tom Lyons, Ian Curran, Killian Woods, think it's okay to absolutely annihilate people and say whatever the heck they want about them. And then the people on the other side, they won't comment about them one point. They won't even raise 1 point of criticism against a guy that is actually doing something really wrong. Shame on you, fucking legacy journalist. Shame on you.
And I think that you can jump out there if you want, but I do think that this has come out of it, Moth News, because the things that you guys spoke about was fairness and equality for all in Ireland, the little guy, the big guy. And in fairness to you, Al, me and you don't always agree, and that's absolutely fine. That's what we're here for. But you started a business. You were paying people well. You're employing people in Cork. You were a good thing for Cork and for Ireland, and you weren't looked after by Ireland. And hopefully you will you will be looked after now. And I hope you enjoy today, because you deserve it. You know, and you know, like the Roy Keane of business, I wouldn't want you to be on the other side.
Guys, all right. Thank you so much for everything. Guys, we couldn't have done without you. I mean that. Okay, thank you so much. All right.
Cheers out. Enjoy Portugal. I gotta kick him out now so we can talk behind his back.
Lovely.
Negatively. I mean, like, it must be a great day for me, but we can talk more about that. Let's get back to what you were saying. You're saying Ireland, this is what we're not, you said, you gave the example of Scandinavian where you could come on and say something to somebody. And I know you mentioned to me the example of a sports star where you can call them out and say this, and that. It's like a football match. You go on and play the game, kick the shite out of each other, but you'll have a drink afterwards. Do you know what I mean? And that's what we're not getting in Ireland. Is that what you're saying?
Well, that's it. I think especially in terms of media, right? So one of the things that if you can't really criticize people publicly in Ireland, especially not if you're in journalism or media or politics. It's not the done thing. Now, if you're in Fianna Fáil, you can have a go at Sinn Féin and that kind of thing. But if you're in Sinn Féin, you're not allowed to have a go back. And then you're just being petty and you're being bullying and you're all these things. But the journalism thing, and there's great sort of colleagues. You and I have had great colleagues over the years in RTE and in all the Irish newspapers and that kind of thing. And that's fantastic. But when you make a mistake, right, in Ireland, there's nobody ever holds up their hand and owns it. Right? I remember a boss of mine telling me many years ago, and he was going, when I make a mistake, I know I made a mistake. And the first thing I do is I correct it and I apologize for it if that's what's necessary, right? Because once I've done that, what else does the world expect me to do? If I don't do that, right? And this is what tends to happen. So if you write for one of the major news wires, they will always make any correction, will always say correction in big block letters, right? Because, the people who are taking the news from these news wires need to be able to trust it. They need to be able to know, right? My name is attached to those corrections if I get a spelling wrong or a date wrong or statistic wrong. And sometimes you think it might be like something really, really trivial, but if it's wrong, and then it has to be corrected. Almost never happens in the modern world, especially with online media. So I will say to somebody in, an Irish newspaper, an Irish radio station, Irish TV station, that article you put out there was wrong, or that statistic in that video clip was wrong. And then rather than acknowledge that publicly, they'll either take it down or they'll change it, but they'll never mention it. And I think that leads this idea that, that we're somehow all infallible, that we somehow don't have to take responsibility for the mistakes we made. Indeed, I remember a mentor to me who's no longer with us. I remember him making a couple of mistakes on the news desk one time. And he was a senior man. This guy had forgotten more about journalism than you and I together will ever know, right? And he put himself in the most junior position of sorting through the stories that were coming in and deciding who would do what, because he said, I am not better than this right now, and I have to work my way back up to get your confidence back. And I think that's really lacking. And what's so important about that, Keith, is like, this is why they call journalism the fourth estate. It's that important to government and democracy and society that's the esteem that it's held in, right? But we have to reflect that. We can't be taken over by a vested interest, whether that be a politician. We might be in awe of them, we might owe them something, it might be a business, it might be somebody else like that. The moment that happens, we're not in journalism anymore. You made the point earlier on, we're in PR then. Right. So regardless what happens, we need to hold people to account. And I think it's only, I don't mind when people have a go at me online. Absolutely not. If you can point to anything I've done in journalism that was ethically incorrect or that was factually incorrect, I would more than welcome that, because that makes me better. Right. If I've misunderstood something, that also makes me better. If you point out context that I wasn't aware of or didn't know where to find. So I think we need to be a little bit better and a little less thin-skinned as journalists, And I think we also need to be able to prepare. We need to be prepared to defend the choices we make, right? So the allegation that Jeffrey Leo and Healy weren't covered, that's quite a serious one. And the idea that maybe the journalists mightn't be doing it because, rather than write something negative, they'll just prefer to write nothing at all. That's a fairly serious one. But I'd love people in the business press to come out, be they editors or journalists themselves, and say, look, this is why we made that decision. This is why. This is how we understood the situation. For instance, they could believe Jeffrey Leo is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and that we need more ex-Morgan Stanley brokers because they provide access to families like the Vennings who are trying to invest this $80 million in that, and that on the whole is a good thing for us. That's great. Give me that explanation and talk it out with me, right? I'm going to tell you, maybe it's not great to have somebody who's actually not allowed to trade in the US anymore, who's lost his license or had his license suspended or withdrawn for doing that. Maybe that's not good because now he's part of a process where they're saying $60 million might have been moved around the place without this being made clear to the original investors. These are all very important things, not least for something that business journalists often talk about, which is investor confidence. If you see a situation where investments are being made through people who have vested interests or into certain companies, and then those companies are liquidated, but the liquidators are friends or have had previous dealings with the companies that are involved, and then assets are being moved beyond the reach of those original investors, but into where their investment manager, all of that needs to be studied. And you know what? The absolute best outcome of all that, Keith, would be if everything was above board and perfect, right? That would be tremendous for Irish business, for Irish journalism. The next best thing is, if any wrongdoing has been done, to bring that out into the light and to report on that. Because no matter how much you try to keep it quiet, eventually these things are going to get back. I don't think that family in America who made their money on egg farming and chicken farming, do you think they're going around telling their wealthy buddies at the country club that Ireland is a great country to invest in? They're absolutely not doing that. They're not going to go to a Republican conference like CPAC, for instance, and say, do you know what you need to do? You need to invest in Irish hotels. They're not going to do that. So one way or another, these stories are going to come out, but we just have to decide how is the best and most fair way to report them, to put them in front of people so that they can make up their own minds.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge problem for Ireland that we've allowed this to happen, and that it seems that, a liquidator, I mean, this is what Alan's saying, but it will come out in the wash and it all will be revealed very soon. But if we're saying that we're a country that allows a liquidator to be in cahoots with a businessman, and then there's a journalist on this team as well, and he's reporting in a certain way about it, that is not good for Ireland. And it maybe it was something I was speaking to someone else about, about being an entrepreneur in Ireland, or about trying something in Ireland and failing. We do not like, we're afraid of failure, and like America has many failings, but they're not afraid to try and fail and try again and fail again. And I think it was an Irishman actually that had that quote, if at first you don't succeed, fail harder, or whatever it was.
Samuel Beckett, I think it was. Yeah,
Beckett, exactly. Yeah. And he was a mad lad, and he knew. But we don't want failure. And then I wonder then, with the reporting of the wrong thing and not owning up to it, not putting your hand up, is that a fear of litigation?
Yeah, I think there's several things. One is Team Ireland, right? One is you don't want to drag the country down by drawing attention to things that, maybe somebody in Brussels or Berlin or somewhere's going to see that, and you think that, okay, you think less of Ireland and investing in Ireland because of it, or in the States or Hong Kong or whatever. But when the story eventually does come out, which they always do, they're going to think that anyway, There's a fear of litigation as well, because as Al mentioned now, there's a court case. I know that letters were written to Alan regarding something that maybe yourself and Alan had said on a previous broadcast that we've done here on Moth News, right? So and those things cost an absolute fortune. And again, it's not enough to be right. It's not enough for you to go on there with the defense, the free speech defense of, that was my honestly held opinion at the time based on the facts I had to hand, right? Which where Alan's experience and all the other due diligence has been done around this case as part of what we've spoken about, right? That is an honestly held opinion. That cannot be libelous, right? If you said that somebody is doing something wrong and they weren't doing it, okay. But when you've put so much into this, right, the case is not going to stand up. But to defend that case, to get a barrister and to get a lawyer and to brief a legal team and that kind of thing, it costs an absolute fortune. So it's often easier for outlets like ourselves and people operating in the same sphere as ourselves, the Ditch, the Tortoise Shack, the Dublin Inquiry, the Dublin Inquirer, those kinds of outlets, just a solicitor's letter alone to certain of those outlets, and that's the end of the story, because they cannot afford that day in court. Whereas people who are in the investment banking, for instance, or investment management, they tend to have sort of slightly deeper pockets than what you or I or others might have, and that's very chilling, because at the end of the day, I think the best stories about Ireland, because if we talk about Brand Ireland, Team Ireland, if we talk about inward investment and all those things that Enterprise Ireland and the Department of Trade and Foreign Affairs will tell you, these are the important things for Ireland. Okay, but then let's be honest about them. Let's say at the moment we have a problem with X, Let's say at the moment we have a problem with how liquidators are appointed. Let's say we have a problem with conflicts of interest and we're trying to work out how we get that without making it more onerous. Let's say we have a problem with journalism and that we need to have a court whereby we can go in and hear these things, not for 46 grand, but for €400, where you can go in and you can defend this in front of a judge and they can say, okay, go ahead and publish, or no, that was defamatory. That we shouldn't have these sort of, inflated. No, Al is probably on for a big payout due to some of the things that have been said about him over the years, but maybe we shouldn't have payouts that will make people financially independent for things like that for the rest of their lives, just on a simple case of an honestly held opinion, So all of these things I think have to be looked at. And I think that when they're all done and you've introduced a system whereby a fair and a transparent system of liquidation, right? Because all of these things, we talk about free markets, but we all know that none of the markets we talk about are free, right? Like financial investments, that kind of thing, they're regulated beyond belief. And this is the problem now that, the various liquidators are going to find. In fact, I was looking at the Irish Times report this morning, and what they were saying is it's very hard to even get hands on the books for the businesses that were invested in, and they haven't been presented to the liquidator, that kind of thing. But that's a bit of an aside. When we've done all those things, then you can say that Ireland is the fairest, most transparent country in the world to invest in. And even the smaller investors, not the billionaires, not the millionaires, but the people investing on behalf of pension funds, the people investing on behalf of workers and veterans and old ladies and that kind of thing, and animal trusts and all those kinds of people, that they can invest their money in Ireland, safe in the knowledge that if something goes wrong, if somebody tries to liquidate that, if somebody tries to take their intellectual property, that they have a comeback that is cheap and that is accessible and that is fair. And that's really, I think, the nub of this kind of thing. But in order to do that, journalism and media and platforms like Moth News, we are the canary in the coal mine, because when we find these stories, we're going to sing. And the only thing that can stop us singing then is if we get poisoned by these legal challenges that come in for no reason whatsoever other than to keep us quiet.
Jesus, Philip, you have a great way with words. I could listen to you all day. I mean, Beckett, how are you? You know what I mean?
I'm just failing better here, as he said.
Just keep going. No, that's beautifully put. And yes, I mean, that's what we're here for. Just to sort of sum it up for anybody that's just joined us. So this American investment banker, former Morgan Stanley employee, was disbarred from doing business in America, went to this family, the Wennings. They made a lot of money from eggs, chicken farmers. They had a lot of money. This man befriended them and said, I'm an investment banker, give us some money and I'm going to go over to Ireland and I'm going to invest it and I'm going to bring you back 3 times what you gave me. And they were like, yeah, that sounds cool. They didn't look into this man. In fairness, they trusted him. There's nothing wrong with anything they did except maybe a bit of due diligence and possibly should have looked into him. But maybe he wasn't. Look, these guys are good at what they do. He's come over to Ireland. He's taken their money. He's bought, for example, with their money. They haven't seen any money yet. This is like he was supposed to give them money back. I don't know, 3 years ago. 6 years in, he bought Dundrum House, which he turned in, which became an iPass center. Nothing wrong with that. It's the way he's running that iPass center. Now, I talked to Aaliyah on Moth News yesterday for Moth News Special. She stayed in Dundrum House, and she told me about. And you can look at that on our Twitch, on X. You can look back and have a look at what she had to say about the place, including her daughter being prevented from getting on a government-supplied school bus to go to school by the security, who have nothing to do with school or a school bus. The security stopped her daughter going to school, which I don't care about anything else that happened. That's highly illegal. He's bought up these places. Not only has he bought up these places, but he bought Dundrum House and then took a loan out on Dundrum House. The Wennings still haven't seen any money back. This man is just going around wrecking people's lives, wrecking. Like, if I'm a journalist and I'm looking at somebody coming into this country and taking down 2 people who are Irish, who went to school in Ireland, and then were so intelligent that they came up with this product that they were able to start this business and pay people well down in Cork, and there was jobs down in Cork, and that money's going into the economy. It's not an Apple company. It's a tech company developed in Ireland and employing people in Ireland, and a very good one, because that tech was taken out of that company once it was liquidated and sold to a company in America. That's how good it was. If I saw somebody coming in and I was a journalist, I would want to find out who this man is, how he's getting away with what he's doing, and why. And I would be on the side of and when I say Irish, I mean anybody that's in Ireland doing business, whether they're came here last week, 3 weeks ago, if they were born here, but if they're here and they're doing business legitimately, and they're entrepreneurs and they're trying to start up something, and they're employing people and they're bringing money and giving money to the economy, I'd be on their side. So for anybody not on their side, for anybody that allowed that to happen on their watch, be it a journalist, be it a liquidator, shame on you. Because this country, we need people, we need entrepreneurs, we need to support our entrepreneurs, we need our journalists, we need to support our journalists. You don't live in the country anymore, and I'll interview you about that, the reason you're not in the country anymore. And we're picking the wrong side. The important people are picking the wrong side. And as I said yesterday about Jeff, Leo, and people who own these iPass centers, how can you sleep at night? You're doing this, you're ruining people's lives for what? For money. And I'll tell you another thing, the protesters that are standing outside Dundrum House, those people were helping the asylum seekers. The asylum seekers turned up at Dundrum House. The place was a state, filthy, dirt and dust on the bed. They had to clean it themselves. These people that came from South Africa and came from Ukraine. The protesters, one of them, Karen is her name, gave them the cleaning products. Printed out documents for them when they were looking for their asylum. Like, there is nothing the iPass Centre people are doing that is actually helping. Like, it's just money. And you're ruining people's lives, and you're ruining a system that we're trying to make work here in Ireland. And you're creating this vacuum where the right wing can enter and say, this is why this is happening. It's not why that's happening. So shame on them, because they're doing it for the money. And at the end of the day, you can't lie down with your money, and you can't take it with you. So have a good hard look at yourselves. Anyway, hopefully this will start. I don't know. Hopefully this will change something. But it's a good day I'm delighted for Alan and Eve.
First of many days, I'd say. And just there's two things there. One is that Jeff Leo says that he has actually given back 25 million to that family. There's 17 to 18 million outstanding. But then,
I made a mistake. No,
that's fine.
I'll own up. I corrected. I'm okay with that.
On the record. But the liquidator has also said that he wants to see all of basically all of the receipts and invoices and everything else, all the documentation behind it, because they haven't seen that yet. I think the case is up in court again in April. And it's one of those, you've been on Beckett today, so let's keep this literary, right? I think it was William Butler Yeats who says peace comes dropping slow, right? So this is going to take a little bit of time now, no more than Alan's cases and that kind of thing. They're going to take a little bit of time to wind their way through the courts. But it's going to be fascinating to watch, Keith, because just to see the legal wheels grinding and making their decision, but also how things are reported on, because we mentioned earlier on that sometimes you're either a good guy or a bad guy, but you can also switch very, very quickly. If somebody decides you're a bad guy, you can be thrown out of the good guy tent very, very fast. And it wouldn't surprise me now that these stories are sort of finally making it out into papers like the Irish Times and that there may be a switch down the road that's coming very, very sharply.
Well, you heard it here first. Thanks very much, Philip. So look, it's gone from this for the owners and founders of Altada. U.S. financier taking legal action against Altada founder Jeffrey Leo files proceedings against Alan Beechner. We all know. I won't get into that again. I'll end up another day in court, possibly. We'll wait for this one to finish. So we have that, and now today we have this. Liquidator wants disbarred broker to be examined under oath. So it's taken time, 2.5 years, as Al said, but this is where we're at now, and this is the start. And people need to start looking at who's running these iPass centers on behalf of us as a people, as a country, with our money. Philip, it's been great. Thank you very much. I'll let you get back to what do you do in Sweden now in the afternoon? We play a bit of squiggle ball or poodle face, or
I'm just thinking there'll be cross country skiing on the television now, and they'll have to hand roll the meatballs for dinner and that kind of thing, So before going out and hunting an elk in the evening for tomorrow's dinner, it's all go here. I'll go with this time of the year.
Philip, thanks very much. Take it easy. Talk to you soon. And obviously we'll be live on Friday at 3:00, hopefully from the studio, and we will be talking about this again and much more and developments. Philip, take it easy, and thank you to everybody who watched. We got good numbers today, so that's all. It's all good news. I'll probably give us a raise now.
Jeff Leo's money.
Good luck.